At first, the town felt normal. Not the boring kind of normal, the kind that feels intentional. Like someone worked hard to make sure nothing stood out. The streets were clean, too clean for a place this small. Houses lined up neatly, each one almost identical to the next. Same paint colors, same trimmed lawns, same quiet porches. People waved when they passed, not friendly, not cold either, just enough to seem polite. And yeah, that should have been my first warning. I wasn't supposed to stop here. This town wasn't on my route. It didn't even show up clearly on my map. But my fuel light came on, and the next highway exit was still miles away. So I turned off the road. Just for a few minutes. That's what I told myself. By the time I reached the town center, the sun was already sinking. That dull orange glow sat low in the sky, stretching shadows across the street. Everything felt encouraged to slow down. No traffic, no music, no voices. Just wind, moving gently between empty buildings. The gas station sat at the edge of town. Old pumps, faded signs. One car parked near the side, dust collecting on the windshield. Inside, a single clerk stood behind the counter. He looked up when I entered, paused. Not startled, just delayed. Then he smiled. "Passing through?" he asked. I nodded, grabbed a coffee, set it on the counter. He rang it up and then stopped. His fingers hovered over the register, as if he'd forgotten what came next. A few seconds passed. He laughed softly. "Sorry," he said. "Long day." That phrase stuck with me, because everyone here seemed to be having one. I asked him how long he'd lived in town. He opened his mouth to answer, then closed it again. "I guess," he said slowly, "my whole life?" The way he said it didn't sound certain. I checked into a roadside motel before it got dark, the kind of place that still used metal keys and smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals and dust. The owner slid a guest book toward me. It was thick, way thicker than it should have been. Pages filled with names, some crossed out, some half erased, some pages completely blank. I pointed at it. "Has this place really been that busy?" She glanced down, frowned. "Huh," she said. "I don't remember half these people." She laughed. I didn't. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because something happened, but because nothing did. No cars, no sirens, no distant noise at all. Just silence. The kind that doesn't feel empty. It feels like it's waiting. The next morning, the town looked exactly the same. Not similar, not familiar. Exactly the same. Same quiet streets, same houses, same air that felt a little too still. It was like the night never really ended. It just dimmed and then reset. I stepped outside the motel. The parking lot was empty. No cars arriving, no cars leaving. The metal key felt cold in my hand, even though the air wasn't. I locked the door, turned around, and almost ran into someone. A man, mid-40s maybe, neutral face, polite distance. "Morning," he said. I nodded. "Morning." He hesitated, just a beat too long. "Do you, he started, then stopped. He smiled awkwardly. "Have we met?" I told him my name. He repeated it quietly, like he was testing how it sounded. Then he nodded. "Right, yeah, of course." But his eyes didn't agree. I walked into town, past the same houses, the same trimmed lawns, the same quiet porches. That's when I noticed it again. No one used names. People talked. They laughed lightly. They greeted each other, but never by name. Not once. At a small cafe, I sat near the window. 2 men were talking at the next table. One of them frowned suddenly. "Didn't we used to work with someone else?" he asked. The other stirred his coffee. "Maybe," he said, "or maybe I'm mixing things up." They sat in silence for a moment. Then one of them shrugged. "Doesn't matter." And that was it. No follow-up, no curiosity, just dropped. That's when I realized something important. People here weren't confused. They were comfortable being confused. I went to the local library. Old building, low ceiling, smelled like paper and time. The librarian looked up when I entered, smiled. "Looking for anything in particular?" she asked. "Town records," I said. "History, residents." She nodded slowly. "Sure." She disappeared into the back. When she returned, she carried a thick folder. The label read, "Residents." She set it on the table and walked away. No instructions, no warning, just trust. Inside were photographs, school pictures, family portraits, community events. At first glance, everything looked normal. Then I leaned closer. Faces were missing. Not scratched out, not torn, just blurred. Perfectly intact photos, perfectly absent people. Like the camera had simply decided they didn't need to be there. I called the librarian over. "Have you noticed this?" I asked. She leaned in, squinted. Her expression changed, just slightly. "That's odd," she said. She flipped through a few pages. "I could have sworn those were clearer." She paused. Then she closed the folder. "It's probably just age," she said. "These things degrade over time." She smiled. The conversation was over. I wrote everything down. Names I heard, conversations, times, because by then, I didn't trust my memory anymore. That afternoon, I passed a woman standing outside her house. She was staring at a framed photo in her hands. Her face looked tired, confused. I asked if she was okay. She hesitated. "I'm trying to remember who this is," she said. The photo showed 2 people. One of them was her, the other, a blur. "I know I loved them," she said softly. "I just don't remember how." She looked up at me. "Isn't that strange?" I didn't answer. Because it wasn't strange anymore. It was a pattern. Back at the motel, I checked my notes. Some words were smudged. Names I was sure I'd written looked incomplete, like they were fading even on paper. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed, listening. No cars, no voices, no distant sounds at all. Just wind, moving between buildings. And something else, a feeling, like the town wasn't watching me, but waiting for me to notice. By the 3rd day, I stopped trying to prove something was wrong. I focused on noticing how it was wrong. Because whatever was happening here wasn't sudden. It was gradual, quiet, patient. I started with myself. Little things felt off. I'd wake up and take a second longer to remember where I was. Not confusion, just delay. Like my thoughts were loading instead of arriving. That morning, I went back to the cafe. Same table, same window. The barista looked at me, smiled politely. "Can I help you?" I waited. She didn't recognize me. I'd been there twice already. I ordered coffee. She handed it to me, paused, then frowned slightly. "Sorry," she said. "Have we met before?" I said my name. She repeated it quietly, then nodded. The smile came back, but something behind it didn't. I sat down and opened my notebook. Some lines were missing. Not erased, not crossed out, just gone. Whole sentences I knew I'd written ended halfway through a thought. I checked the earlier pages. Dates still there, but names? Smudged. Incomplete. Like they didn't want to stay written. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just memory loss. It was selective. People remembered places, routines, jobs, but not people. Not fully. I decided to test something. That afternoon, I introduced myself to 3 different people. Same name, same sentence, every time. By evening, I went back. None of them remembered, not even vaguely. One of them laughed and said, "Sorry, I'm terrible with faces." Another said, "I meet a lot of people." The third just smiled and changed the subject. No one panicked. No one questioned it. That was the most unsettling part. That night, I stood outside the motel and said my name out loud. Once. Twice. 3 times. By the 4th time, it sounded unfamiliar, like a word from another language. Correct, but disconnected. I tried something else. I called someone, back home. The phone rang. They answered. I heard relief in their voice, then confusion, then silence. "You sound tired," they said. A pause. "I'm sorry. Where did you say you were again?" I told them. They repeated it, then laughed. "That's funny," they said. "I can't picture that place at all." The line went quiet. Not disconnected, just quiet. I hung up. The next morning, I noticed people avoiding eye contact. Not deliberately, more like unconsciously. As if looking directly at someone made things harder to remember. I passed the same man twice that day, the one from the motel. Both times he said, "Morning." Both times it felt like the first time. That afternoon, I found something worse. A missing poster, pinned crookedly on a notice board. The paper was old, edges curled, the photo was blurred. But the name at the bottom? I recognized the handwriting. It was mine. I don't remember making it, but I remember the feeling it gave me. A cold certainty that this had happened before. More than once. That night, I stopped writing names. I switched to symbols, descriptions, anything that wasn't direct. Because every time I wrote a name, I felt pressure. Not pain, just resistance. I lay awake listening to the town. Same silence, same waiting feeling. And then I realized something that made my chest tighten. The town wasn't erasing people. It was protecting itself. By then, I knew guessing wasn't enough. Patterns were clear. Effects were consistent. But I needed something solid. Something that didn't depend on memory. I went back to the library. Same building, same low ceiling, same smell of paper and dust. The librarian barely looked up this time. "Back again?" she said. I nodded. She smiled politely, didn't use my name. I asked for old materials, not photos, not records, audio, video, anything that couldn't fade quietly. She hesitated, just a second, then walked into the back room again. This time, she brought out a smaller box, unlabeled, dusty, old cassette tapes, a few DVDs, one cracked external hard drive. She placed it on the table. "This is everything we have," she said. Then she left. No questions, no curiosity, just trust again. I started with the tapes. Static, hissing, then voices, town meetings, school events, local interviews, normal stuff, until it wasn't. In one recording, a man was speaking, confident voice, clear memory. "We've lived here for generations," he said. "Everyone knows everyone." I fast-forwarded. Same voice, different tone. "I don't remember who suggested this," he said slowly. "But it seemed reasonable at the time." Another pause. "I can't remember their face." I stopped the tape. My hands were shaking. The videos were worse. Old footage, town events, crowds. At first, faces were visible, clear, then less so. Later footage showed the same people, same events, but fewer identifiable faces. By the last video, people looked like placeholders, present, but undefined. That's when I found it. A recording dated 37 years ago. A public meeting. A long table. 6 people sitting behind microphones. One of them stood out. Not because he looked important, because he didn't look familiar. At all. He spoke calmly. "Memory is not who we are," he said. "It's just how we organize people." No one interrupted him. No one questioned him. "As long as places remain," he continued, "identity will reattach itself." The room was quiet. Too quiet. I watched the footage again, frame by frame. By the end of the recording, that man's face was gone. Not blurred, not damaged, just absent. Even in the past. I checked the hard drive next. It took a few tries to load. One folder opened. The name read, "Failure Logs." Inside were text files, short entries, dates, observations. One line stood out. "Once an individual becomes too memorable, the system accelerates removal." Another, "Outsiders experience faster onset." Another, "Documentation slows the effect, but does not stop it." That's when I heard footsteps. Slow, measured, behind me. I turned. The librarian stood there. Not smiling, not frowning, just watching. "You shouldn't be looking at that," she said. Her voice wasn't angry. It was tired. I asked her how long she'd known. She didn't answer right away. Then she said something that stayed with me. "I don't remember when I started working here," she said. "I just know I always have." I packed the box, quickly. She didn't stop me. She stepped aside, almost relieved. That night, back at the motel, I played the recordings again. One tape hadn't finished. At the very end, after the static, a familiar voice appeared. Mine. "If you're hearing this," the voice said calmly, "it means you stayed too long. I thought leaving would fix it." "It doesn't." A pause. "They don't erase you. They wait." I shut the tape off. My reflection in the dark TV screen felt slightly delayed, like it wasn't fully synced with me anymore. Outside, the town was quiet. Too quiet. Not asleep, just listening. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was scared. Because sleep felt optional. Like something I used to need. By morning, the motel room felt unfamiliar. Not changed, just less specific. The chair could have been any chair. The walls could have been anywhere. I checked my notebook. Most of the names were gone. Entire pages still there, but blank. Like placeholders waiting to be filled by something else. I knew I had two options. Leave, or stay long enough to understand what "they wait" really meant. I tried to leave. I packed the car, turned the key. The engine started, no problem. I drove to the edge of town. Same road I came in on, same sign, same bend. I passed the gas station, then the motel, then the cafe, then the library. I stopped the car, checked the map. The road looped perfectly. No glitches, no errors, just closed. Like the town had decided I was done exploring. That's when I noticed something new. The missing poster on the notice board. I hadn't seen it before. Old paper, curled edges. The photo was blurred. The name at the bottom was unreadable. But the handwriting? It matched mine. I don't remember making it, but I remember the intention. It wasn't a warning. It was a reminder. Back at the motel, someone knocked on my door. Slow, measured. I didn't answer. The knocking stopped. No footsteps leaving, just stopped. I opened the door. No one was there. But something was different. The room number on the door was gone. Not scratched, not removed, just absent. That's when it became clear. The town doesn't erase you when you arrive. It waits until you stop being specific, until you blend. I went back to the library one last time. The librarian was there. Same place, same posture. She looked at me and hesitated, longer than before. "I think," she said carefully, "you're almost done." I asked her what happens next. She didn't answer directly. She never did. Instead, she said, "Everyone who stays eventually helps." "Helps what?" She looked around the room. "At first, the town forgot people by accident," she said. Then it realized forgetting was cleaner. No grief, no loss. Just adjustment. I asked her why outsiders came faster. She smiled sadly. "Because you notice," she said. "Residents stop noticing." I understood then. The town isn't a trap. It's a solution. A place where memory doesn't hurt. Where people fade instead of breaking. That's why no one panicked. That's why no one fought it. She slid something across the table. A blank folder, no label. "This will be yours," she said, "when you're ready." I didn't touch it, not yet. That night, I sat outside. Same place I'd said my name before. I tried again, once, twice. By the third time, it didn't feel urgent. By the fourth, it didn't feel necessary. I realized the final rule. The town doesn't collect people. It collects roles. Caretakers, record keepers, observers, and when one fades, another arrives. The tape hadn't been a warning. It had been instructions. I recorded one last message. Not my name, not my story. Just this. If you're here and something feels wrong, pay attention. That's how it starts. I left the tape in the motel room, on the table, where someone else would find it. By morning, the room felt complete, like it had always been that way. Outside, someone new stood at the edge of town, looking around, confused. I almost waved. Almost. Then I went back inside. The library door closed behind me, quietly. Final ending. The town remained, not hidden, not secret, just selective. And somewhere on a road not marked clearly on any map, another fuel light turned on. If this story stayed with you, you're probably already paying attention. Subscribe for more stories like this. And if it made you think, tap like. It helps the next one find you.